One story that won't die, it's going to be interesting how this plays out. Albert Breer reported that DeAndre Hopkins, his market is tepid at best. And I think a huge reason, if DeAndre Hopkins was cool with playing for $5 million, there'd be 15 teams lined up to pay him or, attempt to sign him, make him a starter, get him on their offense with their offensive coordinator and their quarterback immediately. But he wants a lot of money. And I think sometimes, with a guy like this, and we talked about it earlier in the week, he saw Odell Beckham get 15. He knows he's better than Odell Beckham, and he's not wrong. But just because someone else signs a terrible deal, Deshaun Watson, doesn't mean that quarterbacks that are more deserving, better players, better people, are going to get that contract. And that's kind of, played out, right? Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson. I would rather have both those guys than Deshaun Watson. Yet neither of them sniffed the $230 million guaranteed. And DeAndre Hopkins, still available. And I saw that Deshaun Watson talked about, he still talks to DeAndre all the time. I think he's pounding the table trying to get him in. It did make me think that there are a lot of pressure teams. I mean, it's the NFL. So the overwhelming majority of the league, coaches, star quarterbacks, highly paid players are under a lot of pressure to perform. But last year, Deshaun Watson really got a pass, right? They were only paying him $1 million. He was suspended the majority of the season. No one thought they were going to be that good with him missing the whole time. They turned out not to be. And when he got back, he was really shitty. And people were like, well, he hadn't played in forever. I think there's a ton of pressure on everyone involved. Now, if they suck, you can't fire Deshaun Watson, right? His contract basically puts him on scholarship. But Stefanski's clearly in a make or break season. And if he's really bad, here's the thing. If he's really bad, how could they get a coach? Like the one thing Denver had going for him, when their owner was willing to pay a coach $18 million, and maybe Jimmy Haslam would too. But ultimately, Russell had 9+ years of being like a Hall of Fame elite player, and especially the last 5 or 6 years. So you go, listen, even if he is washed, if I can get a couple years close to what he once was, we're big time, right? Deshaun had like a season and a half, and the one season that was clearly his breakout season, the team was god-awful. They won 4 games. So I think there are a lot more question marks than answers with Deshaun Watson in general. I think the Browns, historically bad teams and poor organizations don't overcome adversity and question marks easily, right? Like ultimately the Steelers, like there's some question marks. By the end of the season, like, yeah, they're pretty good. You wouldn't want to play them in the playoffs, right? Even Belichick is like, yeah, Mac Jones, Bill O'Brien, how's it going to work out? Like, yeah, they're probably not going to be great, but they'll win 9 games, right? The Browns, you convince me they win 6. You can convince me if Deshaun Watson's a Pro Bowl level player, they win 11. But I got no clue. I wouldn't put my my cash on it. I have no faith, especially on them being good. I would bet on them being bad just because that's what history says. And I just think anytime you put a microscope on a team that doesn't really know how to win, a lot of players that don't necessarily know how to win, things go bad quick. That's why I say about the Lions. Like, I'm bullish on the Lions. I think the Lions are going to be pretty good. But even Lion fans would have to admit, like, it's going to be a little different. Everyone looking at us like, oh, yeah, they're going to win 10 games this year. Right? They're locked to make the playoffs. That's usually not how that franchise carries itself. A coach who's never proven to be a playoff coach, a lot of players that have obviously never played in the playoffs. So it's going to be fascinating to me to watch just this Cleveland Brown, Deshaun Watson contract situation kind of play it out. And last but not least, the college football year, we're just a year away from a lot of the movement of USC, UCLA, Oklahoma, Texas, I think goes to the SEC in 2024. I think a lot of people on the West Coast, I know a lot of Oregon fans kind of wonder, like, is the Pac-12 going to survive? Or Oregon, Washington eventually going to get an invite to the dance? The ACC recently came out with they're going to give tiered revenue, which is the right move, right? Clemson football, North Carolina basketball, Florida State football, they're carrying the conference. Why do they have to split with Boston College, right? We're not all equals in the conference. And this college football season, I think, is going to be awesome. I can't wait to watch these quarterbacks. I think sometimes we get quarterbacks that are overhyped. Caleb Williams is not overhyped. And from what I've been told, Drake May's not overhyped either. Now, part of being a great player is doing it over and over and over again. So the moment you dip, people start questioning you. Even if you still play well, the way that we question top players, part of the deal. I mean, look at what we did to the guys in the draft this year. You rip them all apart. Hell, we were ripping Trevor Lawrence a couple years apart. Part of the deal, man. But I am very, very excited to watch, LSU with Brian Kelly. Lincoln Riley has got a bunch of SEC guys in the transfer portal. My favorite guy, Steve Sarkisian, Arch Manning, who's technically not even the starting quarterback, but a ton of pressure on that program. Oklahoma, I mean, is their coach going to be basically a Venables, a two and done guy? I mean, that's a program that anything less than 9 wins is a disaster. And honestly, 9-3 doesn't feel that great at Oklahoma. It's usually double digit wins every season. To just Harbaugh, Ohio State. I'm really, really excited for college football, and this is truly one of the last years. College football has been changing, and college athletics in general, but it's one of the last years that we get some purity's the wrong way to say it, but just some old school matchups. Like USC is not going to play Oregon if unless Oregon goes to the Big Ten like consistently anymore. Like they're going to play Iowa and they're going to play Wisconsin. Like Oklahoma playing K-State or Iowa State. Like those days are about to end, which I'm going to miss. I wouldn't say I'm like super old school where I'm like, this could never change. But I'm also not exactly coward where I'm pounding the table, glad this is happening. Born and raised in California, like I like watching USC and UCLA and basketball and football play the West Coast schools. But I'm also not ignorant, naive, or don't have the business understanding of why this is happening. So I'm just really going to try to soak in this fall and enjoy some of these matchups that I grew up on that are just going to die, and they're going to die very, very soon.